Oulton Park played host to the second race event of the evening, and it was a shock pole position for Josh Morris alongside race 1 winner Crispin Williamson. But as the lights went out, it was Toby Owen from 6th on the grid who got the perfect getaway, heading up to challenge for second place as they went into the first corner. After a little bit of banging wheels, Crispin Williamson and Jay Daniels got together on the exit of Old Hall and took each other off. As Williamson bounced across the track, all hell broke loose in the second half of the field. An airborne Williamson was sadly out on the spot, but Daniels managed to recover, albeit with damage. This left Josh Morris leading from Alex Jameson, Toby Owen and Chris Slater, who had all avoided the carnage. Fourth quickly became third for Slater as Toby Owen got all out of shape heading down into Cascades. The number 26 driver had changed his setup between qualifying and the race and was struggling to get to grips with the handling of his very heavy 1.5 tonne Mercedes touring car. Following lap, Owen, giving chase, got it all wrong through the chicane and ended up taking himself into the barrier and dropping to the back of the field. A couple of laps later, Chris Slater had an incident all of his own at Cascades, going wide and taking out the cones on his way, and dropping him down to 4th, all of which allowed a surprised Jay Daniels through into 3rd place, having recovered from his early misdemeanour at the start. Andy Jebson gave chase in 6th. A lap later it was all over for Owen as his second spin ended him in the barriers and out of the race terminally. There was then a great battle between the two blue and yellow cars, Jebson and Slater trying to outdo each other with the most spectacular off. First Jebson had this incident at Cascades, before Chris Slater had his own off down at the Shell Oils hairpin, finding the barrier. Out front, meanwhile, it was Josh Morris leading from Alex Jameson. The two of them traded very similar lap times, and although Jameson looked slightly quicker, there was never a gap for him to get past the red leading car of Josh Morris. Further back, blue and yellow cars, Chris Slater and Andy Jebson continued to entertain the crowds with their battle. But Slater's car was increasingly damaged from a number of offs and he was struggling to get it turned into the corners. Jebson passed him initially, but then a couple of corners later it was all over for Chris Slater. He came through Druids, the car didn't want to turn and he ended up running wide, firing back across the track and colliding heavily with the barrier to become the race's 3rd retirement. Up front, Jameson was putting increasing pressure on Morris as we entered the final laps, just looking for a mistake from the leader to try and force his way through. Just 3 laps from the end of the race, that mistake came, with Jameson putting increasing pressure on him. Morris locked up into Knickerbrook, and as he slewed off the track, Jameson came through to take the race lead, which he had been aiming to get for so long. It was a lead that ultimately he wouldn't lose, and Alex Jameson came across the line to take victory in the second race event of the evening after a flawless drive. Josh Morris was a very close second, the two of them well clear of the rest of the pack. Andy Jebson went a lap down with his struggling car as Jameson crossed the line. And third across the line was Jay Daniels, having survived the carnage on the opening lap to fight back to another podium finish, keeping up his very consistent run. Andy Jebson and McRae Williams were the only other finishers, both of them going a lap down before the end of the race. Brands Hatch played host to the final race of the evening, and it did have an end-of-term feel to it. It was Crispin Williamson and Alex Jameson on the front row, but Jameson was the one who got the best start and led the field into Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Williamson, Daniels and Chris Slater. However, going defensive into Druids meant that Crispin Williamson was able to get a run on him on the exit. There was only the slightest of touches between them, but it was enough to fire Jameson off the track and he rejoined in 6th place. The contact, a sign of things to come in this frenetic race. At the front, Jay Daniels held second place from Chris Slater, but Slater, determined to relieve him of the position, sized him up out of clearways and lined up a move heading into Paddock Hill Bend. Jay Daniels was determined to hang tough around the outside, but ultimately had to let Slater go, and instead focused on a cutback on the exit of the corner. Unfortunately for Jay, he got all crossed up and instead found the gravel trap and then the barrier. This dropped him back to 6th place behind Owen and Jameson, but with such a fluid field it was never going to remain 6th for long. A recovering Jameson sized up Owen on the way through Graham Hill Bend and pulled alongside onto the back straight, with Jay Daniels in the pound seats as he watched the action unfold in front of him. Owen was determined not to give up the place though and fought back through McLaren and clearways. Unfortunately, the two ended up touching, and with Owen tagged into the gravel, Daniels slid through to reclaim that 4th place. Andy Jebsen became the race's first retirement with this lazy spin before the pit lane on the 2nd lap. All of this left K-Tech Clio racer Josh Morris sizing up Chris Slater for 2nd place. Morris was determined to get by, but neither of them wanted to lose touch with Crispin Williamson. As they came into Paddock Hill Bend, Chris Slater ran wide, lost control, and as he rejoined the track, Josh Morris had nowhere to go, tagged and slammed into the barrier with some force. As both cars aimed to recover, through came Jameson and Daniels, who now inherited 2nd and 3rd places. The two of them were going at it hammer and tongs, keeping the crowds fully entertained with their very close battling. A lap later, and in pursuit of Jameson, Daniels made an uncharacteristic error, getting it all out of shape on the exit of Druids. In his haste to rejoin, he didn't see Toby Owen coming through the corner, and as he got back onto the track, Owen had to take avoiding action, spearing himself into the barrier and making heavy contact. But there was more drama. Alex Jameson, running in a clear 2nd place, inexplicably slowed heading into Druids. He pulled up the car and was out of the race. This briefly promoted Owen into 3rd, but with his car sporting damage from that contact with the barrier, it was barely moving in a straight line and couldn't really defend from a recovering Chris Slater. Slater got him at Graham Hill Bend, but after a little bit of contact, then missed a gear as they went down the back straight, allowing Owen to come back at him into McLaren. However, with his car not handling right, Toby Owen was fighting a losing battle, and coming into clearways, he spun the car right in front of race leader Crispin Williamson, who put a lap on him. A few laps later and it was Josh Morris's turn to catch Owen. This time the number 26 car offering little resistance as a recovering Josh Morris came through to 4th. Owen retired his car with damage shortly afterwards. Up front and unperturbed by all of these incidents, Crispin Williamson was enjoying a dominant performance. He even found time to put a lap on 3rd place runner Chris Slater en route to the checkered flag. And so Crispin Williamson ended the evening as he began it, with a win. Round Brands Hatch, 36 seconds clear of 2nd place Jay Daniels, who was the only other driver to finish on the same lap as Williamson. Jay Daniels was therefore the only driver to claim a podium in all 3 races, with Chris Slater picking up 3rd place and Josh Morris the only other finisher in this one.